Hi, I'm Marty Schupak from Schupak Sports, and welcome to this session, this video session. This is T-ball practice session number 15, I guess we're up to, and some of the drills are going to overlap. If you're a coach or a parent in baseball or softball, T-ball, or a grandparent, I encourage you to sit back, relax. I'm going to give you some drills, and I'm going to give you some hints too, as far as coaching and some parenting hints, maybe. I've I have 3 kids. I have 5 grandkids, and as parents, we've all made mistakes. But I'm going to try to tell you some of the things that worked with me. Let's get right in it, and I'm going to go through the drills. Keep in mind, as a T-ball coach, or if you're involved as a parent, I like to say that we have 2 basic goals, one short-term, one long-term. The short-term goal is all we want to do is have your son and daughter have a good time in their first year in T-ball, so they want to return for the next year. That is your only goal, okay? Now, how do we do this? We achieve this by mixing fun with a little bit of skill drills. Now, sometimes the fun will take up the majority of your practices. I think you should feel it out. If that's what the kids want to do, that's what you do. But you integrate baseball skill drills or T-ball skill drills. Okay, here we go. This is the first drill. If you look closely, it's what I call the very simple knock the box throwing drill. And all we're doing is we're taking 6 boxes. We're setting it up right here like a pyramid, okay? And we put a cone on top. We then put a player, and you can have 1 or 2 lines. This is a great drill to do in your backyard. And the goal is to knock down the cone. And what you want to emphasize to the players is you want to try to hit the boxes like right in the middle, because once they do, it'll knock down the cones. Now, remember, young kids, especially 4 or 5-year-old kids, it's difficult for them to have any sort of directional throw. But when they have a target, one of the things that does is help keep the head steady. When young kids throw the ball wildly, most of the time, or a lot of the time, a big part of it is that their head is just swinging back and forth. We want to have some sort of target. Even in a lot of throwing drills, we put a cone behind where they're throwing it so they could focus on that. Okay, we're putting players in a position to succeed because we don't want the distance to be too far. And look, throwing is a huge frustration with kids. And out of all the baseball and softball skills, this is the one skill where there's such a big gap about how kids progress and how differently they progress at different paces. Keep that in mind. And if you're coaching, you have to really reiterate that over and over again to the parents. We don't want kids quitting baseball or softball before they have a chance to reach their athletic potential. I've seen too many kids that quit the game early. And remember, they quit sports, young kids. 2 of the biggest reasons, I've said it over and over again, is because of injury, number 1, and number 2, because they don't want to be embarrassed amongst their peers. These are the 2 things we as coaches and parents have to overcome. All right, so that's the knock down the box throwing drill, very, very easy. Okay, next drill is very similar. And what I'm doing here is, I call it beat the bucket throwing drill. All I'm doing is getting buckets like this, and I'm lining my team up. And again, you have to space this out a lot more than what it's shown here. And what the players have to do is they have to throw the ball, and have to try to get it into the bucket. Now, what I like to do, I use the 5-gallon buckets rather than the small plastic buckets, just because they're more durable. It's an easier target. What you can do is you can maybe just have 2 lines, and you put 2 buckets next to each other. because we want the players to achieve success. And you want to tell them, don't worry if the ball goes in the bucket, comes out. You just want to get it in. And one of the things I like to emphasize in something like this, and you could tell the kids for every ball they get in the bucket, they get to do a victory lap around the infield. All right. And what this is doing is we want to emphasize at a young age that running is not a bad thing. We've all had, if you're in my generation or a generation behind, we've seen high school coaches that will punish players by having them run, okay? But for young kids, we want to tell them that running is a good thing, and running is actually a lifetime sport. So we want to reward kids, telling them they could run, and we call it a victory lap around the infield, okay? All right, okay. Let's go to the next one. This is hitting, and if you investigate hitting, the ideal way of hitting a ball is to swing from high to low to up again. What happens with young kids, T-ball and a little above T-ball, is they'll have just swing up like this. So what you want to do here, I've used 2 chairs, but this, we're using 2 tees, and we're putting the player in the right place. This picture doesn't show where we're actually supposed to be, but what he's doing, he's swinging from high to low, hitting the ball like that, okay? So what we're trying to achieve is the uppercut, like some kids do right away. They just swing high. You want to go from high to low. We want to line up the kids. You have 1 tee, it's higher than the tee with the ball on it, and we're going to line them up in a proper stance and tell the player to hit the ball off the tee, okay? That's the high to low 2 tee drill. You could do that in your backyard. If you don't have the money to buy 2 tees, don't do it. Ask your league if you could borrow a couple of tees. I like the old-fashioned heavy-duty tees that are durable, a little harder to manage to transport, but I find they're the best type of tees. So that's the high to low. Again, we're instilling on kids very young the proper swing, okay? All right. Remember also, and I've said this before, young kids at a very young age, you want to try to separate skills early in the year. So if you're teaching catching a ball, don't have them throw it. And if you're teaching players to throw a ball, don't have them catch it. And by this, what I mean is, if you're in the backyard, let's say, with your son and daughter, and all you want to do is teach them how to catch, you'll have a bucket of soft-covered balls, or let's say tennis balls, and you throw it to them. And if they catch it, you just tell them to drop the ball, put it next to them. You take another ball out of the bucket. One of the things I tell coaches and parents, don't spend money if you don't have it. But if you're going to spend money on anything, do it on extra baseballs, whether they're soft-covered T-balls or tennis balls. And as they move up in the ranks, you want to get the regular hard balls or the regular soft balls, extra balls, practice balls, okay? And also, I'm adamant about finding every baseball or softball after practice. I will comb the field for sometimes a half hour looking for every single baseball or softball. And most of the times, I'll come away with more baseballs or softballs than what I started with. We want to instill upon our kids also the value that, money is doesn't just grow on trees. And I have my team line up and we comb the field. This is a drill that I created. It's called the recycle bin drill. And what I do is I'm showing the young T-ball players how to hit different objects rather than a ball, but kind of a fun way. I'm taking the recycle bin, all right? And first thing you have to do, and you do this ahead of time, you go through the bin and you remove anything that's sharp or dangerous. And then you put different items that are in the recycle bin, you have them try to hit it off the batting tee. Now, this one, if you look close, I think it's showing a water bottle, but I've used detergent bottles or containers that are a lot bigger. I've used 1 gallon milk containers. If some of the things won't sit well, remember that if you've been following me, I do what a drill called the beach ball plunger drill early in the year, where we put a plunger in the batting tee and a beach ball on top, making it easier to hit. You could use the plunger too for the same thing for the big items, but this is a drill the kids they really get fascinated with, because it's something that they know that we recycle at home, and it's a very, very good drill. So that's the recycle bin drill. And I also have the recycle bin toss drill, where I'll toss the items and they'll swing the bat into a fence or into a screen. Okay, so that's another good drill. Here's another hitting drill that I really think is very important, especially early on in T-ball. It's called miss the tee drill. All right. What I'm doing is I take one of those plastic yellow bats, usually a wiffle ball bat, and I'll attach a string at the end. I'll hold it over the batting tee, and the player has to swing the bat without hitting the rope. The brilliance of this drill is that, and you only do it for a few minutes, you raise or lower the plastic bat, so the space where the player swings the bat, it varies. And of course, when you start, you raise the bat higher so the space is larger, putting the player in a position to succeed, and then you lower it and see how low you could go where the player won't hit the tee or the string. So that's the miss the tee drill. Very easy to set up. You could do it at home. Beautiful drill at home. And here's a drill that my own kids really love. And what I did was I took a 4-inch cinder block, I laid it out in my backyard. I took a bucket. I keep a bucket of different types of balls, tennis balls, wiffle balls, soft cover tee balls, hard balls. I mean, my garage, I haven't had a car in my garage in like 3 decades. It's basically equipment, and thanks to my wife, I try to keep it as neat as I could. I take a 4-inch cinder block, all right, and I put it down, and I take an old tennis racket, and I have the player, or in this case, it was my son and daughter when they were young, and as of late, it's my grandkids. I'll bounce a ball off the cinder block. This isn't showing it correctly. It's going to go straight up, and the player will swing the tennis racket like a bat and hit it into space. Now, you have to judge how big your backyard is. If you want to go to the school, you could do it. Obviously, you don't want it to hit your neighbor's house or whatever. But one thing I'll tell you is that if even in inner city, I've had some of my most creative games when I was young growing up. I used to go to my grandparents' house in Brooklyn, New York, and in the back they had an alleyway. And beyond that, they had a little opening with a wall, and my brothers and I used to play for hours and hours there. So you be creative, but keep in mind when you're a parent and you bounce it straight up, when you bounce it, you have to go back right away. You don't want to have a drawer full of tennis racket. But again, because the player has a tennis racket, we're putting them in a position to succeed, and they really enjoy this. So that's the tennis racket hitting drill. I want to encourage you to use different things around the home, be creative. And if you're making something, it's so important to include your son and daughter to create it. It's something that they're always going to remember. We could always go out and buy the most expensive items to use in baseball or softball. But when you create the item, it really sticks in your son or daughter's head. And just a case in point, I remember years ago, and my father knew very little about sports, but I was crazy about basketball. And I wanted to have a basketball rim in our front yard. And we weren't able in the economic position to purchase a pole and a beautiful rim or whatever. And what we did is we used a piece of wood. It was a 4x4 piece of wood. And we cut out a piece of plywood. And we went through all the measurements. My father was very handy, but I remember this distinctly to this day because we worked on it together. I remember digging the hole. I remember treating the 4x4 wood for weather every night, brushing it with a weatherproof. And then I remember my father asking me, and I was like 8, 9, or 10, how high off the ground the rim had to be. And I told him 10 feet, and how he measured it. And I remember putting it up. I remember we had to tar the bottom of the 4x4, or it was his suggestion, to help protect it while it's in the earth. And I'll tell you, that basketball rim and backboard, it stood in my parents' driveway for over 30 years until a hurricane knocked it down. But in my mind, I just remember the process of being with my dad with quality time and creating that basketball rim instead of going out and buying it. All right, last drill. When it's the summer, grab one of those big red plastic bats, get in your bathing suit, give the bat to your son or daughter, get the hose, and put your thumb on the hose and intermittently let the water out and tell them to swing at the water as it comes out. Kids will love this. You'll get wet. There's a lot of giggling. You can either do it with their brothers, sisters, or their friends. It's a good drill. It's fun. It's wet. It's a summer drill. I call this the hit the water spray drill. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. You put your thumb on it and then you let it go. It comes out in 2 or 3 inch sprays, and they hit it. So that's about it. We're going to wrap it up. Please, if you enjoy what you're seeing, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to Schupak Sports. We have 20,000 drills coming. So please subscribe. Let your friends, neighbors, and let your leagues know about the SchupakSports.com YouTube channel. Now, as far as products, okay, here we go. Most of the drills are in this book, T-Ball Drills. I'll put a link on the bottom. You have over 110 drills. You get it at Amazon. If you don't have the money, don't buy it. Go to your local library. Insist upon it. My name's Marty Schupak. If you go to your library, they're gonna be reluctant because I self-publish, and most libraries don't like to carry it. But you can insist. You could get your league to ask them for the book, and they'll get it. Here's another book for T-ball players, T-ball skills and drills. All right, there are a few more pictures in this, and there are some other creative drills that you're going to love. And I also go through the history of T-ball in this, who invented it too, which I hopefully will be interesting reading. One more? Okay, one more. Here we go. You long-term baseball, softball coaches, pick this up. This is one book I want you to buy, even if you can't afford it. You will use this as a resource for years, I promise you. Baseball Coaching, a guide for the youth coach and parent. Pick it up, purchase it. You're going to refer to it a lot. There's over 300 pages in it. I have a lot of different hints about running a baseball team. So that's going to wrap it up. I'm Marty Schupak, and this has been Schupak Sports. Until next time.